And like I said earlier, we have some special guests with us today. My cousin Arnetta Scruggs, and we also have Gloria and Gabriel Combs. Arnetta, Gloria, Gabriel, how you guys doing this morning?
Good.
I'm glad you guys could do this. I know it's a holiday. This will be dropping a few days from now. I'm glad you guys to take some time to talk about a very important issue, not just in our lives as Black individuals, but also in everyone's life in the country and really just around the world. I'm going to start with you first, Arnetta, Executive Director of the Bloom Project. What were some of the initial thoughts in your head when starting the Bloom Project, and then give people a background of that organization?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Arnetta. I'm the executive director of the Bloom Project. The Bloom Project is named after my grandfather, Ezell Bloom Stevens. When I started the Bloom Project, it was actually from an event called the King's Feast. And so that event, the young men had to dress in professional attire, and they networked with other professional males from different career fields. And so one year, one of the young men came to me and said, "Miss Arnetta, this is a great event, but what happens in between that time?" And so for me, I was just planning an event. Like, I just wanted to change the stereotype. And because a lot of our young men, when they dress up, they have a certain type of confidence about themselves. I think not just young men, just people in general, right? When you wearing a tie, you just feeling yourself, you smelling good, you just have a certain confidence about yourself. And so I wanted to make sure that we change the narrative, especially our Black males, because a lot of times when they're on TV, it's for something negative. And if you're not an athlete, you never get the chance to be on the news, right? And so for me, it was very, very important that we change the narrative. And so when I was actually approached to start the organization, I had to think about the man that basically was very important in my life, and that taught me everything from he didn't think it was financial literacy, but that's what it was, saving coupons, going to the store, senior, all of that. And that was my grandpa, Ezell Stevens. And so that's why I created Bloom Project. And so when we started, I told this young man, I've never been a boy, never been a man. But you tell me what you're going through, you tell me the topics, and I will find men to come talk. And so that's literally how Bloom got started. And now we're in Indianapolis, and we're also in Fort Wayne as well.
How has Bloom impacted your life? Because going from nothing, just starting it, and as the young man mentioned, what do we do after this? How has Bloom, not just with the impact and relationships of the young men, but the other men my age, our age, that have been there to be kind of mentors, how has Bloom impacted your life?
Oh my gosh. So I don't have any young men that I birthed, but if you're my friend on social media, my hashtag is I don't have to birth them to love them.
That is true.
And so each one of the kings that have participated in the program, they become my sons, right? And so Bloom is a legacy. If you look at the O in Bloom, it's a leaf, which means we're continuing the legacy of the Stevens family, basically, right? And so each one of them, I go hard for each one of them like they're my own. So again, you don't have to birth them to love them. And that's definitely the impact that they have made in my life.
Let's go down to Miss Gloria, then Gabe. Miss Arnetta just made a comment that she said that she goes hard for them. Is that true from your guys' impact with her, that she goes hard for those young men on a regular basis? And I don't care which one of you guys answers this one. I don't care.
Yeah, she does. Tell us about it. Yes. Well, it's pretty fun. You get to interact with people, talk about issues of the world, like mostly racial, or what's against Black men or Black males. And I just love interacting with people and talking about the issues that we're having.
Okay.
I think it's great as well that there is a space created for our young males to be able to interact with mentors from Indiana and just to be seen in a positive light. I think that it creates a culture for these young males to do something beyond what is expected of them. Mm-hmm. And so when I first learned about it, I knew that was something I wanted my son to be a part of. And ever since he's been a part of it, he's become a better young male.
Okay. what was your introduction to the Bloom Project, and what were some of the things that went through your head that kind of encouraged you to help Gabriel be a part of what Arnetta is doing?
I actually saw some advertisement in a online program workshop, and I said, "Wow, you want to do something like this?" And he said, "Well, sure." And when he later found out after the workshops there was basketball, he was hooked. And so one of the biggest barriers I think that young males have, especially in our state that I see, is having the access to opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
These programs and workshops are very accessible. So if you Google something, you can easily find it. And so there's nothing worse than having a great program that no one knows about. And so I think the Bloom Project does a really good job of advertising the services that they have. And so when we got them in one program, every time we saw something listed, we wanted to get them in as many programs as possible.
Yeah.
And you liked them, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. So Gabe, I'm going to go to you real quick and then go right back up to Arnetta. What are something that the Bloom Project, or a couple things, Gabe, that the Bloom Project has done to have a big impact on your life that you could say, wow, that workshop or that mentor or something like that has been a part of the Bloom Project? Which part of it, or a few of them, have impacted you, and you as a young man can see the impact that this program has had in your life?
Well, I would say it would make me more mature and more understanding on the issues. And also, I just like to interact with my people, I just love the interaction.
Okay. Is there a mentor that has maybe had a big impact on your life that maybe stick out? There may not be. I'm not sure. They may all be the same way. But is there a mentor that sticks out and is like, that individual? I know I can rely on them. I can call or text them for anything. Anything like that?
No.
Yeah, all
Okay.
equally the same.
Yeah, all equally.
What was that?
They're all equally the same.
That's amazing. Arnetta, back up to you, and then I'll drop back down to Gabe and Gloria here in a second. But Arnetta, as a young Black woman, I know when the George Floyd thing hit, it hit everyone different. It hit me one way, it hit my dad one way. But you see my dad on social media, on Facebook, just post after post after post. I mean, every day he's just getting his thoughts out there. When you first heard about the George Floyd killing, I was trying to use a different word, but I can't use anything else. He killed the man. He murdered him. It's sad. When you first heard about that and then saw the country's reaction the following days and leading into that first weekend, what were some things going through your mind?
I think for me, it was just super emotional, right? And so I'm a fixer. So, just in those situations, you can't fix it. But I was trying to find out ways that I could use my voice, because I'm not knocking it at all. I don't do protests, but I'm the one that I want to be in the meetings to to make that change. And so for me, I'm like, who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to call to make that change? And so I started being in meetings. I started, probably most of them I was the only woman in those meetings, but it was very important that I reached out to parents. So we started doing Sunday just conversations, I'm not okay conversations. And so I didn't care who showed up. It was just an opportunity for our kings, for our mentors, our parents to just say, I'm not okay, like, period. And to just vent. And however you felt at that moment, to just be able to voice your concerns in that Zoom chat. And for me, it was amazing especially for our kings to be able to just think of different strategies of how we need to impact. And also for me to just say, what else could Bloom be doing? What else do we need to do better? Because clearly something is not connecting. And so we have, in the past, Bloom Project has had interactive, it's called True Dialogue. And those opportunities are for, we've had IMPD panel discussions, but I think we just got to continue to educate, because our young men, our Black men, are not bad. But for some reason, there's this negative, I'm scared tactic that we got to figure out how to break that. And I feel as Bloom Project, we just have to continue to educate. It just has to continue.
Yeah, I know when it hit me, and I'm not a protester either. Like the protesting, that's not me. That's somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
And there's people that do that all over the place. I even heard about, unfortunately, something last night in Mooresville. I'm not sure if you three heard about it, but there was a protest at Mooresville, and there were white people that weren't for and trying to stop it. They were trying to oppose it. And I'm like, wait, what do you get? Like, I understand that racism's out there. I understand that it's not going away anytime soon. Like, I understand all that stuff. I know myself as a young black man that there are things that I have to face that I shouldn't have to face just because of the color of my skin. But those meetings, those chats, those have to be such a beautiful thing just to be there in your position, to see so many people just venting. And I know there's a lot of people right now that just want to vent, want to get their thoughts off their chest, things that have been on their heart, in them for years. And I mean 40, 50, 60 years, older men, older women, people our age, people Gabe's age. I mean, there's people all over the place that have just those things that they just want to get off their chest. And being that avenue and allowing Zoom is a wonderful thing. I didn't use it until the podcast. I was like, oh, it's that easy to talk to people in different areas. But I'm like, it's amazing that one incident. Now, I don't know how COVID-19 kind of brought all this stuff together and made it the boiling point, but it's crazy that a pandemic leading up until this kind of helped so many people come together. And Arnetta, someone in your position, I'm sure you go home at night and you're like, wow, I never thought I would have any kind of impact, or I would have to be put in this situation. But right now I'm in it. Do you have anything in the future? And I know I'm talking about that. I'm going to get back down to Gloria and Gabe here in a minute. But do you have anything set up, say, in the future now? I'm looking 3 to 5 years from now about, say, if something like this happens again, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to try to help the young men and maybe the parents, because I'm sure Gloria is the same way. She probably has thoughts in her head. But Arnetta, anything in the future or even currently that you're continuing to do to continue that conversation?
Yeah, so we are just continuing it. So every Sunday, we're doing a youth speaker series. And so we are now going to speak with politicians, because my biggest thing is, and I've been out of school for a long time, but we had to take government class, right, to graduate. I can't tell you nothing about nothing.
Not at all.
I know I passed because clearly I got my diploma. But now that I think about it, I never thought that I would be in a place. Sorry, something's in my eye. I never thought that I would be in a place where I could implement laws or present laws and really understand it. And so I want to make sure that our kings have that opportunity. If they need to write letters to lawmakers, if they need to, create policies and be a part of youth councils, that Bloom is teaching them all of that so that they can do that. Because I know city councilmen. I have met every chief of police of Indianapolis. I have met, legislators and senators. My friend is a senator. So it's just, I never thought that I would be in that place that I am now. So making sure now that Bloom Project is a part of those conversations. So it's not stopping now that, everything has settled down. Actually, we are creating our own program where our kings will be a part of that.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Ms. Gloria, I'm going to go to you right now. Kind of the same thing I asked Arnetta there in the beginning. When you heard about George Floyd, the murder, the killing there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then kind of seeing how the reaction started, not just in Indianapolis, but in Minneapolis and all around the country, and then seeing people around the world coming together to march for Black Lives Matter. What were some things going through your mind when you saw that, thinking about being a mom? Like, what was kind of your thoughts throughout that whole time period?
Well, I thought about the slogan that you see on a lot of t-shirts, I can't keep calm because I have a Black son. And just knowing that something that close to home, even though we're in Indiana, that these kinds of things are still happening. When you think about like Rodney King, and these things are videotaped. If this hadn't been videotaped, what would have been the outcome, And to constantly have to face this now, I mean, the civil rights movement wasn't that long ago. And it's like this basic civil liberties that African Americans still just don't have. I have an African American son, and from time to time we talk about different things that are going on, specifically a bill that was going to try to go up to be passed, Bill 449, which would incarcerate children 12 and older for major crimes. And we talked about that, and my son actually told me, you know, Mom, my prefrontal cortex is not developed. If I make a mistake, I could go to real jail. And these are real issues. These are like conversations we actually have to have going into new school years every single year to talk about different things like that. And that's part of being a Black mother, is that there are still things I have to teach you that maybe a non-minority child may never have to experience. So watching that on television just reiterated that, wow, there's still a lot of work we have to do.
My dad and my mom actually have both recently made a comment saying, actually my mom told me a story about one of her coworkers that lives in Noblesville about how, I forget if this is a mixed couple or if it's a Black couple in Noblesville, but they said the son just got his first car, and the mom was, and one of the neighbors said, hey, go outside, go sit in the car, and the car's parked in the street, go sit in the car, go play around with it, play with the buttons. And the mom is like, this is one of my mom's coworkers telling me, she's like, my son can't do that. My son can't go sit in the car in that area, because if a cop comes by and stops him and it starts questioning him, and all my son is saying, this is my first car, sir, I just want to have fun, I just want to enjoy my first car, the cop could say, no, get out the car. And then we've all seen it. It's an unfortunate reality. I hate it. But we all see that young man in that area, even though he's doing absolutely nothing wrong, the cop could assume, without knowing, or just, I don't want to assume anything. I'm just going to use my authority to take you out of the car. And my mom was like, yeah, I got worried about you I'm 32 years old, just had a birthday. I'm excited. But my mom and my dad are worried about me as a young Black man in my car, driving down the street, wondering what's going to happen next. Am I going to see my son on TV? Am I going to get a call from my son say, hey, Mom, I didn't do anything wrong, but you're going to see me on TV soon or in an article. And my mom's going to freak out. Arnetta knows my mom was going to freak out, crazy. And I'm not trying to laugh, but it's just reality that Black parents have way too much to take care of, have way too much to deal with that they didn't ask for. It's just the reality of our country. And Gabe, I'm going to go to you, kind of the same question. When you first heard about George Floyd and then saw what happened in Indianapolis, just to stay local in Indianapolis, when all of that stuff happened, what was some of the stuff going through your mind?
I was just disgusted on why you would do that, just because of a bad check. That just ruined my day when I found out.
Have any of your friends, and it could be Black, white, Hispanic, it don't matter, but if any of your friends ask you questions, and are you guys coming together aside from the Bloom Project, but what kind of conversations do you and your friends have since that situation took place in Minneapolis?
Oh yeah, we start signing. I shared that with my friends and said we should sign a petition, and we did. And a lot of us helped.
Tell us about, what is the petition? What was it about?
Like, it was for his murder. And also we signed other petitions for innocent Black people that got killed.
Okay. Miss Gloria, with you having a young Black son, some of the thoughts that go through your head have you always had them? Like, did you know that it would come to this point? Did you think that it may come to this point where, like you mentioned, the law about the 12-year-old being incarcerated? Did you think that we would get to this point where you would have to keep having these same conversations over and over and over?
Yes. It's a sad reality that had to happen before more people decided to do something about it. But it's an ongoing conversation because we live in a more rural town in Indiana, and there are side conversations that I have to have with my son to let him know, like, there's just certain things you can't do. And it's sad because they don't always understand. Well, if they can do it, I don't understand. Like, what is the problem with me? You just can't. And those are conversations we have to have. But I think it needed to happen. People need to be aware that everything is not equal. It's not. And I also am not the kind of person that would probably be on the front lines of protesting and would still like my voice to be heard, because it is hard when you are raising an African American male and you want him to do well, and talking with teachers, and if you're not well educated on certain things, how even in the education system, how they'll try to play you. But when you go into those meetings and you are very educated about what you're talking about, sometimes those conversations change. Like, we can't pull that on her because she knows. And I think about the parents who don't know and how they're being taken advantage of and things like that. And so it's difficult, but I think we're getting to a point now that Gabriel understands that I want to finish school. I want to make my opportunities more robust. And he's doing his own thing in his own right, talking to kids about, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this. He's part of CLD, which is Center for Leadership Development, and just trying to stay active so that people see him in a positive light, and instead of just making assumptions just because he's an African American male.
Stay with you one more time, Miss Gloria. Have any of your friends, race doesn't matter, come to you and ask you how you're doing? What your thoughts are? I mean, I've had some of my white friends come to me and ask me, as crazy as this is going to sound, Jay, is white privilege a real thing? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I use some dumb illustrations sometimes. Like, yeah, if my name is Maurice and there's a Michael and we have the same resume, Michael's going to get ahead of Maurice because of his name. Like, we laugh about it, but it's the truth. And there are so many bosses, old heads, young heads, middle age, it don't matter. Like, so many people, that's their mentality, that I'm looking at your name. And because of your name, you're either going to be 1 or 5. If your name is Maurice, you're automatically 5 or lower, even though you could be more qualified than Michael. And it's sad. I use that all the time. People laugh about it, but it's the reality. Ms. Gloria, have any of your friends come to you and ask you things about race and your thoughts about them, and maybe why you're so frustrated?
I actually have had lots of coworkers reach out to me by email and by text, just asking me if I was okay. Some of them that are still very unaware, like you had mentioned, that white privilege is a real thing. And what I think the message that we try to get out to people, because you have never experienced it, it's hard for some people to understand that things in life can be hard for you just because the color of your skin. And not to take away from anyone else who's experienced hardship. We're just trying to explain the hardship that we've experienced is not necessarily because of something we've done, but because of the way that we look. And when you've never experienced that, it's hard for people to try to grasp and understand that. But a lot of my coworkers, white coworkers, have reached out to me and, just told me that I want to understand more. I'm sorry that this is going on, and just been really supportive, and just trying to be understanding of what's going on as well. But yes, quite a few people have reached out to me.
Do you mind explaining just one of the conversations that you've had with some of your coworkers? It doesn't have to be all of them, but just any of them.
Sure. I got a text message from one of my white coworkers that just basically said, "Are you okay?" And I said, well, there's a lot going on. And, no, I'm not okay. I mean, watching the news and seeing what's going on here recently in Indianapolis, a young man was gunned down by the police. Mm-hmm. And so we had a very quick conversation that basically, no, I'm not okay. I appreciate you checking in on me. And they asked if there was anything that they could do. And I said, just be aware, just be aware. Do you know what white privilege is? And to my surprise, this particular coworker is very woke, if you will. And she's very understanding of what was going on. And she has checked on me since. It wasn't just a one-time kind of conversation. It was something that was ongoing.
Okay, good. Arnetta, back up to you. And for those listening, when I say up, I know it's just going to be an audio podcast, but it's a Zoom call. So Gloria and Gabe are below me. That's why I keep saying up and down on my particular screen. But Arnetta, I know when I was 20, I think I was 20. I don't know the exact age, but a white man used the N-word when talking to me. I remember the effect of that word at that time. I remember when I told the story literally just about a month ago, 10 years later, never thought that, never said the words, never told the story to anybody, honestly. It's just if you were there, you heard it, saw my reaction, and then so be it. But I saw 10 years later that affected that word, and just how degrading that was at that point, it still had a long-lasting effect on me at this point in my life. When someone says the N-word to you, it could be black or white. It don't really matter. But when they say it, let's just say white, because I know racial issues. A white man said it to me back then. I'm sure someone may have said it to you. But if someone says the N-word to you in a derogatory way, how do you feel?
It saddens me just because, so my experience actually happened when I was super young.
Okay.
I don't know, I think I was like 5 or 6, but I was in Girl Scouts. And I think at that time it was brownies, so I was that young. And for me, I was the only Black girl. And so one of the girls, actually, we're riding a bus, and she was just like, "Can you take the dirt off your face?"
What?
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that was the first time that I realized I was Black. Like, it was like one of those, because I loved brownies. I mean, I knew I had to be around, white girls, but it wasn't ever a race. Like, these are Black girls, these are white girls, never like that. And it was just like one of those. And I went home to my mom, and I was just like, I have dirt on my face. And she, she had to explain that to me. But for me, I was just like, I never thought I was dirty, ever. Until that day. And that was, I think, the first race conversation that we've ever had that just really made me realize, like, it starts young, and you have to have those conversations, because a lot of times people are like, well, you have to wait until they're like in middle school. No, this girl came up to me. We're just riding a bus, and for her, she wasn't trying to be racist. It was just her meeting a Black woman, well, a Black girl at the time, and she felt like I had dirt on my face. So I still think about that to this day. Is like, that was deep. That's what, if you're not around a lot of Black people, you have to educate them. And I think that's why Bloom is like so important to me. And we have to educate, because so many times they're so ignorant to us. And all they see is what's on TV. And that just irritates me so much, that I have to make sure that young kings like Gabe and everyone else that comes through Bloom, we change that narrative. They have to see it. If you are my friend on social media, I show pictures of them daily. Daily, you would know my Facebook is not Arnetta, it's Bloom's. And it's because I want them to see these young Black men doing positive things in their community. It's so important to me that happens. It's so important that they see this Black woman starting her own organization, named after her grandfather. She created that, right? And not trying to brag or be conceited, but we can do that. Yeah. We can start our own organizations. We can start our own businesses. We can help our community out. That's what we can do. And it's not we're behind anyone else's dream. We started our own dream.
That is true. That's 5 years old. That's wild. 5 or 6, whatever age it was. That's wild. Like, I looked at Miss Gloria's face, and we were both shocked that at that age, like, someone would say something like that. Gabe, I want to go back to you. Have you ever, and if it's no, I'm going to be glad. But have you ever, and if it's yes, elaborate if you could. Have you ever been on the receiving end where someone is coming to you and making racist comments?
No one done that before now.
That's good. That's good. Miss Gloria, are you comfortable sharing any situations like Miss Arnetta and I shared, where someone made a comment to you, so you didn't do anything just because of the color of your skin?
Well, I will say, to just backtrack with Gabe, there was one situation that he was not aware of.
Okay.
And this actually happened pretty recently. He was going to a newspaper to do a story on some of the community service that he's done. And we had to go into a court building in order to get to where we needed to be. And there was a lady who walked out, and she said to me, I understand, it's going to be all right. And I had to think for a moment, like, it's going to be all right. What does she mean by this? And then I had to think, we're going in a court building. He's dressed up. She must be under the assumption we're going to court. And it took me a while to kind of piece that together. And the day had been over by the time I realized it. And I said, oh my God, she thought he was in trouble. And for you to automatically assume that was the reason because he has on dress clothes is terrible. Like that's the only reason why you think an African American boy would dress up. And not to say that all people think that way, but that kind of hurt, that experience. But me personally, I have lived in different rural areas in Indiana my whole life. And so I have faced many situations where I have been called out of my name. And I went to Hamilton Heights, and I was one of 3 African American children in that school. And for some reason, some of the white males thought I was attractive, and the girls did not like that. And I had a cross put on my locker one time. And at the time, I was too young to know what that meant. And my grandmother had to break that down to me. And she went to the school and had a conversation. The area that I live in now, if you go and purchase something at a store and say you're not thinking about it and you leave your receipt somewhere, it is very embarrassing to go return something being an African American woman, because there is this whole big ordeal. Everyone is looking at you as if you stole something, and it's very uncomfortable. And just throughout my life experiences, I've had little spats, and I've just tried to learn how to adapt, because even if someone is in the wrong and they call you out of your name, your reaction is what's looked at. It's not what caused it. It's your reaction, the angry Black woman, and why you went off. And it's like, it's not okay to have feelings when someone has called you a name like that.
Yeah, it's sad. I just every time I hear these stories, I'm at a loss for words, because I don't know how to respond. I don't know how to come back and how to say, oh well, this and this. Like, no, like I'm shocked. I've had my own stories. You guys have had your own encounters. I am shocked that even in my life, even though I haven't lived a rough life. I mean, Arnetta knows my parents. Like, no, not at all. Like, wasn't rough at all. But we still encounter the same type of things or some degree of them because of the way we were made, that God made us this way. That's all I tell people all the time. Like, God made me this way. I can't help it. I can just live my life to the best of my ability, and that's it. But to wrap this thing up, I'm going to go with Gabe first, Miss Gloria, and then Arnetta last. Gabe, if one of your friends was going to come – no, excuse me. I'll change it this way. If you were trying to be the change in your community, Gabe, to end racism, what are some things that you think you can do as a young Black man to help end racism?
I think we could all do community service and interact with each other and understand from different races, like why they think that and why we think this differently. And we could just interact and just understand each other by community service or like meeting up somewhere.
Okay. Miss Gloria, same thing with you. If you were trying to do your part to help end racism here in our country, better yet, here in your community, what are some things that you could do to be the change to help end racism?
To talk to people, to be understanding and open-minded, that even if you don't face some of the things that African Americans do, to just be open-minded about what we're going through. Don't misconstrue Black Lives Matter with all lives matter. Doesn't mean that we're saying no one else matters. It's just we need to direct attention to this issue where individuals who are free as well should be treated equally. And so just allowing the opportunity to educate yourself. One, every person who is white should be aware of what white privilege is. You should know what that is. And if you don't know, educate yourself. Education is going to be the key in helping to fix the problem with racism, and being open-minded. So what I would do is I would encourage people to educate themselves. Educate themselves on truly what Black Lives Matter mean, educate yourself historically on things that have happened to African American people. There are children like Gabriel's age, they are not aware of slavery because it's not being taught in the schools. They have no idea where the rage and the anger comes from because they're not being taught this in this generation. And so to do your history, to do your research, to understand where the anger comes from, the frustration comes from, because that's going to allow you to be open-minded to understand, wow, I see why this impacts this this race so much.
Then Arnetta, same thing with you. If you were trying to do your part to help end racism and be the change in your own community, let's just keep it. What would you do to be that change?
I would say just still continuing to do what Bloom is doing, having these conversations, doing these interviews, educating our youth about slavery, about just their history. I think that's very, very important because they're not going to learn it in school. So who's going to teach it to them?
Right.
Right. And so it has to be us. A couple years ago, we took our participants to the Muhammad Ali Center. This year, we wanted to take them to the Freedom Center, but COVID changed that, right? But just those different opportunities. We can't wait on the school system to do it. We got to do it ourselves, and so we have to educate us so that we can educate them.
Thank you, Arnetta. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Gabe. For those of you listening to this, on my Twitter page, under the link when I tweet this episode out, I will also tweet something about the Bloom Project. I've been doing a lot of extra stuff with guests on lately, so that is not going to change with what's going on now. Even though this is not sports related, we will still tweet some Bloom Project info under the tweet with the link to this particular episode. Arnetta, Gloria, Gabe, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your holiday weekend on the 4th of July to talk about a very important topic here, not just in our community, but also around the world. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you
For having us.
Thank you.